Good morning, everyone. Today is March 12th, 2024, and we are here at the Doña County Board of County Commissioner meeting room. It is 9:06. Sorry for the late start. And I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. And to begin, we do have our invocation from our Deputy Fire Chief, Eric Crespin. Welcome.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, good morning. To those that are joining us this morning, good morning as well. Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, I'd like to respectfully request that we share a moment of silence for an individual who was a champion for many throughout the community throughout the years, Mr. Rory Rank, former children's public defender. If you would, please bow your heads in silence. Thank you. Heavenly Creator of all mankind, nature, and this miraculous world we live in, we respectfully come before you as a unified body that proudly call this community Doña County. We seek your blessing over those individuals that have been called to lead this great community that many of us call home. Help this great group of leaders that make up this body of governance to realize that they must primarily seek out what is needed throughout our region rather than sway away from the truth and understanding. Understand the trends of those people who have been placed in this community as a group. Help us all to reflect on the moments of rapid growth and progress and remind us all that we are primarily servants before leaders of your example, and that is our duty to serve others with kindness, respect, and humility. Provide to all that humbly seek your wisdom and courage to know and do what is fair and just. May we always be guided by the spirit of community, the spirit of fairness, and by the spirit of truthfulness and compassion. This we pray in the name of all that we hold near to our hearts, and so let it be according to your holy name. Amen.
Thank you, sir. If we'll all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Wonderful, thank you. And then, Brandy, if we can get a roll call for quorum.
Commissioner Reynolds?
Here.
Commissioner Chaparro?
Present.
Commissioner Sanchez?
Present.
Vice Chair Murillo?
Present.
Sheriff Chaldo Hernandez?
Here.
Chair.
Okay, we do have quorum.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I just, if you'd mind a moment, please.
yes, of course.
I did want to take a moment and also to recognize that the passing of Mayor Slim Whitlock, who had been serving in his first term as mayor of the village of Hatch. He had previously been on the board of trustees for the village, and previously also a school board member for the Hatch Valley Public Schools. People knew him in the community, not just as a public servant, but also as the owner of Jim's Supermarket. I wanted to send our thoughts and prayers to the village of Hatch, his family and friends in the area. If you knew Slim, you knew you were a better person for it. From, when you went on a phone call or had just met him out somewhere, his first question was almost always, how the heck are you doing? How's your family? It was always about how you were as a person first before business. And that's the type of person he was. You knew, if you knew that once he knew you, it wasn't a handshake, it was a hug that he gave you. And he brought that into his life as a public servant. And the village of Hatch lost a public servant, a champion for the whole Hatch Valley. And so again, just wanted to recognize the contributions of Mayor Slim Whitlock, recognize his passing, and send our thoughts and prayers to all those and especially his family. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you. The commission convenes as the Board of County Commissioners and the County Board of Finance in open session. I understand that there will be a change to the agenda. County Manager Macias.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning. I'm asking that item number 17, which is the presentation related to the AMR contract, be the first item on today's agenda in order to accommodate a conflict that some of the presenters have.
Okay, so we do have that change to the agenda. Is there anything else, Commissioners? Seeing none, can we get a motion to accept the amended agenda?
So move.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Murillo and a second by Commissioner Chaparro. Brandy, if we can get a roll call vote on the amended agenda.
Commissioner Reynolds,
Madam Chair, Mr. Chair, point of order. I'm not sure that it requires a motion to change the agenda. I think it's just something we accept. Am I right, Mr. Gooden?
Does it hurt?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, typically we don't make a motion to change the agenda. If everybody's in agreement with changing it, we can. It's actually something I think that's within or to change the order. I think it's something that falls within the discretion of the chair. But, so I don't know that we need a vote to move things around in the order. I think it's just if there's no objection to it and the chair, that is one of the duties or authority that the chair has, is to figure out how we're going to conduct the meeting. It doesn't have to be a formal vote to modify it.
Okay, we would have already been done with the vote by now, but does anyone have any objections to the amended agenda? Seeing none, the agenda is accepted. Okay, moving on, we do have the presentation of the AMR contract. We do have our HHS Director, Jamie Michael, and we also do have our Fire Chief, Cherry. Welcome. Good morning. Good morning. Hot seat. Let's do it.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jamie Michael, County's Health and Human Services Department. Chief Cherry and I are here to give you a brief update on the new contract between the City of Las Cruces and AMR to provide ambulance services throughout the county. So a little bit of background, just as a reminder. In December of 2020, there was a settlement agreement reached between Doña County government and the City of Las Cruces, and this was part of a Public Regulation Commission settlement agreement. And the goal with that agreement was to maintain one EMS system countywide instead of dividing it up and having one system within the city limits and within the City of Las Cruces and a second system outside of the City of Las Cruces, which would have created kind of a donut-shaped geographic area and not been very effective. We came to the agreement to have one system continue countywide. Again, as a result, the city issued a request for proposals to maintain the services under one contract. And that agreement also said that the services and the performance would be no less than what we were currently receiving under the contract that was in place at that time. The City of Las Cruces then released the request for proposal in March of 2023. One proposal was received. AMR Inc. was the sole bidder. The original proposal was $4.7 million, and through negotiations among city, county, and AMR, the final cost of the contract is $3 million for the first complete year, which would be 12 months. We are initiating the contract just because the timing of things, the contract was initiated on March 1st. So we'll be prorating from March through June, and then July 1, it will start with the full one-year contract for the $3 million. And now Chief Cherry is going to give you details about the services that we will be purchasing from AMR.
Good morning. Like Ms. Michael said, I'm going to get into the meat and potatoes of what we're doing with our contract for and how it was negotiated. So part of the settlement agreement asked that, or required that the negotiation included county personnel, city personnel, in order to come up with that contract that met current standards or exceeded them of the contract that was in place at the time of the settlement agreement. And so I'm going to break it down into the 3 response zones, which kind of break up the county that made the most sense geographically. Population densities help drive these decisions, as well as the needed coverage in those areas. So we're going to first look at the central zone, which is the area here in and around the city of Las Cruces. It is not just the city limits, the central zone. Excuse me. So it does include the denser populated areas and the suburban areas of the central zone, which would include places like up Highway 70 into Oregon, the Picacho Hills area out into Doña, kind of south of the city, where the population density is still, it's much heavier than it is in farther places of the county. So we felt that it made sense in order to establish that area as a place that was defined by response times. So in this zone, AMR is currently, their coverage plan is to have the units as described above, 4 units, 24/7 staffing with a mix of ILS, ALS, BLS units. Those are advanced life support, intermediate life support, and basic life support. And those are the levels of EMTs that'll be available there. They will have additional scheduled units 12 hours a day, and they also have dedicated interfacility trucks in this area. And all of those trucks are an effort to meet this really long, complicated slide, which says that it's based on response time criteria and an 85% compliance. So in critical emergencies, a 10:59 response time, 85% of the time is the contract standard. And as you get farther away from the city, obviously, I mean, that's when the response times get longer. And that's where that 18:59, 85% of the time comes into play. So this next slide will kind of give us a good example of the different response times areas, right? So anything there in the orange falls within the 10:59 for the critical emergencies. And then outside of that area, which you recognize that there's not a lot of population outside of those areas. So that's the central zone. The north zone and the south zone have a similar setup to one another. So again, the north area of the county, which is Hope Road, north of Doña, all the way up to the county line, is something that we call a level of effort. Because of the call volume up there, it was decided that we would have one primary unit, 24 hours a day, that would be stationed up there by AMR, and that unit could not be pulled into the central zone to run interfacility calls or other emergencies. It would be dedicated to that zone. And then we were able to determine with call data and history that it was ideal that one unit could provide this the majority of the time, and that Doña County Fire Rescue, with our staff that's moving into the Rincon Station on April 7th, will be providing the backup if that unit is already transporting a patient into the city. We'll be providing the patient transport capabilities in that area as a secondary unit. So that's just kind of a quick map of north of Hope Road all the way to the county line. The south zone works similarly, but again, we know that there's a larger population center down there, including areas of Chaparral, Santa Teresa, and so forth. In this area, we'll have 3 units covering 24/7, but the same rules apply. Those units aren't to be pulled into the city for interfacility. They're not, or the only time that they could be is for a mass casualty event, and that applies across all of the county. Units can move around at that point freely for a mass casualty event, but otherwise they're dedicated to that section of the county. Those 3 units typically are stationed in Santa Teresa, Anthony, and Chaparral, but they have the capability of responding anywhere in the southern zone. And if by chance, all 3 of those units are already on calls, if they're already, assisting patients and providing transport already, again, Doña County Fire Rescue will be providing the backup, as well as Sunland Park has a transport unit that is available to provide patient transport. So in those areas, I talked a little bit about the response time in the central zone as being the key indicator. In the north and south zones, the key indicator is how often, 90% of the time, that unit has to be, those units, those dedicated numbers, 1 in the north, 3 in the south, have to be available, right? If they fall below that, then it falls outside of the contract guidelines. Real quick, this is a quick slide that covers some key differences between the last contract and the new contract, because again, the settlement agreement required that the new contract meet or exceed previous standards. So in previous instances, a big key that I've keyed on it a couple times now, AMR ambulances could move freely within the county, and oftentimes what we found was that they were pulled into the city for calls and left long response times when a call did happen in the north and south areas of the county. Now that they're dedicated to that area, that's a key improvement. Another change in the system that I haven't talked about yet is that in the previous contract, AMR was responsible for all 911 transports in the county. That was their contract. Under the current contract, the city of Las Cruces is now going to transport critical emergencies, and there's a dedicated a list of call types that the city will function as the primary transport unit, and AMR will be the backup for them. And so that's a key change in the system, but it adds more transport capable units into the system. This by the city using their transport units as part of the plan. Another question that was a part of the last contract was always performance review. How are we measuring them? How are we making sure we're meeting them? We focused heavily on that in negotiations, and it came down to where you're going to use a third-party reviewer. This company does this across the nation. They gather data directly from our CAD system to monitor performance, and as well as, and that's how they would tell if an AMR unit in the north wasn't logged into the CAD, then it's not available, and that's how we're going to measure whether or not they're meeting those performance standards with this third-party vendor, which I think will be. It's a nice way of us having a neutral party review the data, report it out, and it creates less conflict within the system on determining where the performance measures are. Another area that a lot of people don't think about in what helps keep a system running is actual vehicle maintenance. Anytime an ambulance is down, they're not able to respond to a call. And so that's another key factor in this to ensure performance standards, is that there are vehicle standards within the new contract for AMR. That third-party data system review I'd like to talk about just for a minute before I wrap up here. It's not just about how many hours of the day is there someone sitting in an ambulance, because we can do that all day long. We can put people in an ambulance. The goal is to provide a high-quality medical system to the community in Doña. And so outlined within those evaluations are clinical standards, patient outcomes, and then, of course, the level of effort response time measures. But we keyed in really heavily on very national standard call types like chest pain, strokes, heart attacks, major trauma events. They're going to be not just measuring the number of hours that the ambulance is there, but are they performing at the level that we would want them to for our communities? A good example is, a major trauma events, 10-minute scene times, if someone's having a chest pain call, how soon from the time we hit the door to we're giving them a 12 lead and determining that it is a cardiac event, those type of measures are very important in making sure our system is performing up to the standards we want. And those are I just wanted to outline how detailed that we got into the contract, and we're trying to build a system that makes sense for the community as well as perform at its highest possible level. With that, I'm pretty sure that if Jamie's there, we're ready for questions.
Thank you both for that presentation. Commissioners, do you have any comments, questions, or concerns?
Excuse me, sir.
Of course, Chief.
We also, sorry, I completely forgot that. We have AMR representation to hear. We have the director for AMR Las Cruces. And I don't know what Joseph's title is. Operations Supervisor.
Wonderful, thank you. Commissioner Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is there a chance we can be provided a copy of this contract? I don't recall seeing it in our inbox. And I guess my questions, and I think, so my questions will be more around that because I think that you highlighted on some of it. You noted that in the central zone, the target numbers of, I believe, 1259 and 1859 for response times. If they don't meet those, I think, I can't remember what the numbers, I have to go back here and pull up the presentation of the slide, but when they don't meet a certain number, then they're subject to LDs. What are those LDs and how are they, I guess, how are they calculated?
So, excuse me. So yes, when, I'll start with the, I know you asked about the central zone, but I'm going to start with the north and south. It's a little easier to work into. If the ambulance is not staffed for an hour of the 24-hour dedicated, right? And it's not due to an unforeseen circumstance like a tire blew out on the side of the road. Like, if they're meeting the vehicle standards, the tire blows out. They have AMR has 2 hours to get that unit back in service without a penalty. If at the beginning of the shift there is no one to staff it, it starts accumulating quickly at $143 an hour. For every hour that each unit is not available to respond to calls. So north and south, that makes it pretty straightforward. We can do those. When we start evaluating the 85% response time criteria in the central zone, we start looking at if they don't meet the 85%, there is a tiered, I'm trying to remember exactly how it's worded, but there is a tiered delineation in the penalties. And if over a review period of 6 months, though those standards aren't met, we move into a plan to improve, a system improvement plan to try to get back up to the standard. At the end of 12 months, if those standards still aren't met, we can trigger what's an emergency takeover clause.
Okay, so they don't, but outside of those 6 and 12 months, there's no interim or at least like monthly to where there is any type of penalty for AMR meeting those requirements?
So the interim, yeah, so the ambulance review committee that is now being run by the city will be meeting monthly. Quarterly, the third-party reviewer will be providing the data overview for us to meet and discuss and try to move into those things. And then when the payments are every 6 months, they're twice a year, correct? So those penalties will be assessed during the payment periods every 6 months.
Okay. I guess I think one of the things that I would love for us as the BOCC to be able to get updates or even maybe a presentation to understand how it's going. I think one of the things that we've seen with AMR has been, and I'm hoping that, I think like you've broken up in the clauses where the north and south zone cannot be responding to the central zone unless it's a mass casualty event. Maybe that will help with this, but I think the biggest concern that we've heard, or I've heard, and I think Commissioner Reynolds has spoken this many times, has been the response time. And so, and I know that doesn't apply to the north and south zones, but, hopefully we'll see an improvement by having that clause in there. The other question I was curious on, and when I look at, again, I think the central zone, just because it's set to a specific time requirement, I guess anything above, I guess when I look at the zone A and B, LDs don't start until 2159. So meaning even it doesn't matter where they are, even if it's in the city where they have a majority of, from what I understand, where they can respond, they have an additional 11 minutes for a critical emergence call type before they experience any LDs. Why was that done, or how was that determined versus it being shorter? It was just arbitrarily done to 2159 within the whole central zone.
Anything over the 2159 to get into the liquidated damages, that's on top of the other performance measures. It was like, that's where the tiered, I say penalties, but the tiered standards come into effect of, if the system progressively performs poorly, when it hits that mark, that's the tipping point of now we're gonna start assessing liquidated damages.
Is there any issues that come in and I apologize, Commissioners, this will be my last question and I'll turn it over to everyone else. You noted in like I'm assuming the same thing in the central zone, but in like the north zone or the south zones, if they have to go to a secondary with our medical transport or the city of Las Cruces responds, is there any metrics to identify that they are not responding, that AMR is not responding in time, that now a secondary unit has to go, or how will that be captured?
Sure. So one of the performance measures that we did we outlined in the contract, though it's level of effort in the north and the south, we did identify that we're going to track the 1859 response times as a performance evaluation measure, and that will help us determine whether or not the 1 in the north and the 3 in the south is enough. If our response times are consistently pushing that 1859 or more by AMR, then that's a key indicator for us that we need to either discuss with AMR adding additional units in those regions or coming up with another solution.
Okay. Thank you, Chief Cherry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Of course. Commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have some other questions, but he's asked most of them. So I have a question about who actually negotiated this contract? Was this you and Ms. Michaels?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I want to applaud you. This is one of the best contracts we've had with AMR since I've been here. And I appreciate the effort. I appreciate the time you spent, and also taking into consideration the difference between the different zones. I think it was well thought out, well structured. And I only have one more question, and that is, how long is it for? Is it for 4 years? Is it for 2 years? I know it looks like it's going to be renewed every year. Is it limited to 4, 8? What are we looking at?
So it is consistent with our last contract. It is an 8-year contract that requires renewal annually.
Annually, that's right. Okay, I assumed that. Okay, no, I applaud you. I applaud the effort of the staff and also AMR for participating in a mutual discussion about how we all benefit from this and cover the area. So I'm very happy. Thank you.
Wonderful. Any other commission comment? Thank you for the presentation. I really do appreciate it. Yes, of course.
Mr. Chair, just one so AMR will be paid by the city quarterly, but the county will pay the city annually. So very soon, we will be coming to you to approve a payment from the county to the city for the prorated time between now and June, and then once a year after that.
Okay, and do we know the funding source of contract?
It's the healthcare assistance program. The funding has been budgeted in that fund.
Okay. Thank you so much. Okay. Moving on, we do have the consent agenda where the board will be asked to approve by one motion the following items for recurring or routine business. Commissioners, I'll ask at this time if there's anything that you have any questions, comments, or concerns on.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Reynolds?
yes, I'd like item 5 pulled off for separate consideration.
Is there a way that we can ask questions on this before we pull it off as to still try to move and accept
no.
all in one time? No? Okay. Would you like to make a motion then?
I don't think I need a motion to do that.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I can do
If
the
we could
motion
just have the
for
question.
consent.
He would like to pull it off.
Right, but I'm just saying, if we could have the question, if it isn't a long discussion, then it can just stay on and you can approve it, rather than having to separate like we do.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Macias, I'd like to vote no on this item, and so I can't do that as a consent agenda item, so I'd like to consider it separately, please.
Okay, so we would still need a motion to approve the consent agenda or to pull off
moved.
item
With the
number
exception
5.
of item number 5.
With the exception of item number 5.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to accept the consent agenda 1 through 14 with the exception of number 5.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Chapato, and I have a second by Commissioner Sanchez to accept 1 through 4 and 6 through 14 with the exclusion of item number 5. Brandy, can I please get a roll call vote on those?
Commissioner Reynolds,
Yes.
Commissioner Chaparro,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanchez,
Yes.
Vice Chair Murillo,
Yes.
Chair Shaljo Hernandez.
Yes.
The consent agenda has a few resolution numbers. Item number 1, 2024-49. Item number 2, 2024-50. Item number 6, 2024-51. And item number 7, 2024-52.
Wonderful, thank you. And then now moving on to consent agenda item number 5. Number 5 reads to approve the New Mexico Economic Development Department grant in the amount of $85,366.74 for the Shalum Colony Trail Park project, along with associated budget revision and resolution. I do see that we have our Director of Facilities and Parks here, Mr. Robert Herrera. Welcome, good morning. Commissioner Reynolds, if you would like to ask your questions at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think, shouldn't we have a motion first?
Okay. Is there
So
a
moved.
motion? Okay, there's a motion to accept. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. So we have a motion by Vice Chair Murillo and a second by Commissioner Chaparro. Welcome.
Good morning, Commissioner Hernandez, Robert Herrera, Director of Facilities and Parks. I'm here to entertain any questions, Commissioner Reynolds.
Mr. Herrera, the only question, I only have a couple of questions. Number one, have we addressed the issue of criminal behavior in that area? And how does this help with that?
Currently, we are entering into the design phase, and we will be working with not only the community, but also the architect firm that is named to be procured for this contract to figure out how we can add architectural elements to the area to curb crime in that area. We did intend to create what I call a executive committee and invite people from the community to participate, also take input from the sheriff and other stakeholders around the area so we can develop that comprehensive plan. But at this time, we have not engaged in that plan yet.
Okay, so let me understand what we're dealing with here. If I understand you correctly, what you're saying is all we're doing now is approving a possibility that we might do something, so this is actually not the project? This is a study of the project?
This is to design the project that was identified from the study. So it's basically actually just engaging in the construction documents, and we need those construction documents so we can negotiate a use agreement with International Water and Boundary Commission. They want to see what we plan to build. They want to see at least 50% construction documents. So this contract would be to start down that path. But again, we will be engaging with the community, holding public comment, and identifying those concerns that people have and how we can address them through the design process.
Okay, forgive me, but I thought we did have some community meetings and there were some concerns and you're aware of most of them. And so have we already addressed these and decided how this is going to fix those? It sounds like you have not. So why shouldn't we put this off until after we have decided how we're going to address some of the issues before we go into the design phase of actually being ready for construction? I think it sounds to me like we're almost getting a little bit of the cart before the horse. And that's what my concern is, because if we have a situation that has potentially a problem, it seems like we should be aware of that before we go starting to think about design and having more meetings in the community. So I believe that we should have more meetings in the community to determine how we're going to address specific issues with this plan before we go into a design phase on how to do it. I just think we're missing some things here.
Chair, Commissioner Reynolds, so we did identify and documented the concerns from the immediate surrounding community. We also have public input from supporters of the project itself. So in order to address those, the feasibility study just identified, is the site suitable for what we intend to use it for, what is the proposed use for? Now, within the design process, that's where you start developing I guess, architectural elements that will address those concerns. Now, without actually putting pen to paper, it's hard to say, well, to mitigate loud music, we can put trees or some kind of barriers. To mitigate people staying there late at night, we can add barricades that it can be locked at night. Those things will be addressed, again, through the design process so we can see on a schematic design how all that works together and show the public this is what we can do, not just describe it, vocally, but also show it on papers, how these items will look and how will they deter crime or any other concerns that they have. So that's just the design process that we enter into this, different from a feasibility study.
Okay, I would hope that as part of this process that we would be apprised of exactly how some of these specific issues are going to be addressed before we go into any kind of construction or, or design phase for doing the construction. So I think once you understand exactly how the design is going to impact some of the challenges, I think we should be presented to that, but to the board, so that we can then determine whether we continue to move forward or we stop the project and say, maybe we rethink it. That's what I would request. I'd like to see that. Because if we move into design and we go ahead and have the money to fund all this and get it done, before we know how we're going to address these issues and what the impact is going to be, then I think we run the risk of not accomplishing our goal. And I'm concerned about that. I think it's great what you're saying, is that, yeah, we can probably do designs to maybe mitigate some of this and solve some of the problems, but I don't know that if my understanding of the situation or the area is correct, I don't know that there's anything we can do to prevent continued violations of the law and ordinances that we have. And I'm really interested in seeing what you come up with, okay, before we actually start building something. So.
Yes, sir. Right now, we're just entering the design phase, and the design phase is broken into two major components. We have design development, and then we have actual construction documents. What we can do is we can enter into the design development phase. There should be a 50% and 100% submittal that we can present to the commission to start identifying how we address their concerns. And at that point, then we can decide, is it feasible to go to the next phase of design? I can do that for you.
Yeah, I would appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Any questions?
Just a comment. I did have during my meeting, Misty Dawn was there at Fair Acres Elementary School, and we did have a lot of people coming out about the project, asking a lot of questions. And I just want to say thank you to her and thank you to you. She addresses comments, questions, and concerns very well, including talking about the advisory committee that would be put together to help talk about this. But honestly, I think that the design needs to happen before we can really look at the concerns, because we need to know what we're looking at. But the preliminary drawings that you're presenting are great, but I would love to see it fully designed so that we can bring it to the community and bring it to that committee to look at and further investigate of what needs to happen in order to make it safe and secure. Because right now they're using that access point illegally to access the river anyway. So it would be nice to kind of give a little more extra there. So thank you, and thank you to Misty Dawn and your staff for helping address those concerns at my meeting. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, so we do have a motion and a second. Is there any other comments, questions, or concerns? Seeing none, Brandy, if we can go ahead and get a roll call vote on this.
Commissioner Reynolds?
No.
Commissioner Chaparro?
Yes.
Commissioner Sanchez? Vice Chair Murillo? Chair Shaljo Hernandez?
Yes, motion does carry.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Of course.
That has a resolution number. That resolution number is 2024-53.
Wonderful. Thank you, Brandy. Okay, that concludes our consent agenda. Next up, we do have our pet showcase, and we do have our county manager, Macias, here. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, on behalf of the Board of County Commissioners, we advocate for the adoption of dogs and cats from the Animal Services Center of the Mesilla Valley. Our dog of the week, we'll start there, is Frosty. 2 years old, a medium mixed breed, female. I'm a fun-loving and energetic girl looking for an active and loving family. I'm still pretty young, so I have energy that I'd like to burn off by playing with toys and going out for walks. At the end of the day, I'd love to wind down with some pets and cuddles from a loving family. I hope it can be yours. The cat of the week that we were given is Tommy, or Tom the cat. I'm a handsome and friendly boy that was picked up as a stray with my brother. My brother has since found his forever home, so it's my turn now. I'm ready to turn my life from being a street cat into being a spoiled, indoor-only house cat, loving my forever family as much as I can. Mr. Chairman, I don't know that I've ever had this opportunity to announce to the commission that actually Tommy was adopted yesterday. And the adoptor was Brandy Delgado's daughter, Jasmine, and who has fallen in love with Tommy the cat already. And so I'd like to, on behalf of the Animal Services Center, on behalf of the commission, I'd like everyone to, through Brandy, thank her daughter for actually adopting one of the cats from the Animal Services Center. In other words, Tommy the cat is no longer available for adoption and has found their forever home.
So I
But
shouldn't
still,
have sent the
Frosty
text message
is
of the cat
available.
to my husband. Okay, sorry. I'll let him know it's already spoken for.
He's a cutie.
So thank you again. We encourage anyone that's here in the audience and anyone listening to consider adopting, just like Jasmine did, an animal from the Animal Services Center. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Next up, we do have our employee recognition, where the commission will recognize Doña County employees for their years of service to Doña County. And we do have our county manager, Mr. Macias.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As most of you know that are here in the audience, that the commission takes an opportunity at every meeting to recognize employees who have met a certain milestone in their careers with the county. We're going to begin with a 10-year recognition of Deputy Andres Burunda. Would you come forward, Deputy? Do you have members of your family here? Yeah. Have them come up. Have them come up. Yeah, your baby has a lot to say that I've been listening to during the proceedings. So let's bring the family up as well. It's a beautiful looking family. Now I understand some of the information they provided me. So actually, Deputy Andres Burunda joined the detention center as a trainee in September of 2013. He became a detention center officer in 2016 and then transferred into the healthcare unit in 2017. In March of 2017, he transferred to the sheriff's office as an uncertified cadet. Upon his certification, he joined the patrol division in 2018. In his role, he works with a team on the graveyard shift. He is also, and I hope that's not to avoid having to wake up with the kids at night, okay? Okay, so leaving it all to your wife to do. He's also on the sniper team for special response and a field training officer. When off duty, he plays competitive cornhole. And if I had seen that earlier, I would have brought one in so that you could have taken a few pitches to show us how good you are. Oh yeah, you can come over here with me, baby. Not only does he play competitive cornhole, but he loves to spend time with his wife of 11 years and his 4 children. Ladies and gentlemen, an individual who does a lot for this community, puts himself at risk for this community, ensures the security of this community, and supports such a beautiful family. Let's please join the commission in giving Deputy Andres Borunda a very special recognition. Sheriff, why don't you join us up here and you can extend the plaque.
Thank you for your service to us, sir. I don't see him very often, I have to admit, but I know he's out there. And especially with our special response team, that is a chore above and beyond every day. So, Mr. Barunda, here it goes. In appreciation for and recognition of 10 years of dedicated service to Doña County, on behalf of the Board of County Commissioners and County Management, 2/24/2014 to 2/24/2024. I hope there's at least 10 more.
And Officer Borunda, I hope Anita Skipper doesn't get annoyed, but it carries the logo, the old logo of the county, but it says 10 years, so I hope that you'll add it to your, all of your symbols on your, maybe you can add it to your tie. It is a beautiful pin, and it does recognize your 10 years. Congratulations to you. Thank you. So let's bring up Tommy the cat's grandmother, Brandy Delgado, who we're here to recognize also for 10 years of service. Brandy Delgado worked for the county before and rejoined in February of 2014 as a document technician in the Health and Human Services Department. In 2015, she transferred to the clerk's office as a recording and licensing lead. In 2020, Ms. Delgado was promoted to administrative assistant, her current role. She is a timekeeper who works on budget, orders supplies, and other administrative work. She also has a very public role as she keeps the Board of County Commissioners running smoothly by keeping, I thought that was supposed to be the chair. Look at that. I didn't know it was you that was running everything smoothly. Okay, very good. By keeping minutes for the meetings and keeping track of resolutions and ordinances. She's an excellent representative for the county who proudly and expertly plans and organizes public and internal events, including filing day, election day lunches, and monthly birthday celebrations. She helps keep the clerk's office together and well organized. At home, Ms. Delgado is a proud grandma of Jeremiah, Ava, Austin, Autumn, and now Tommy the cat. She enjoys spending as much time with them and her daughter, Jasmine. She also loves to spend time and travel with her fiance, Joe, and she saves a little time, it should be more, for the Dallas Cowboys. Just enough to hold season tickets to all their home games. Ladies and gentlemen, a very special employee I think all of you know her. She has an exceedingly beautiful temperament. I have never really seen her in a state of wrath or anger or anything like that. I've always just, yeah, thank God, always with a great smile, a beautiful smile. So please join the County Commission in a special recognition because she keeps these meetings running properly. Miss Brandy Delgado. To Brandy Delgado, in appreciation for and recognition of 10 years of dedicated service to Doña County on behalf of the Board of County Commissioners and County Management, and this was the 24th of February of 2014 through 2024. And again, a special, because since these are going out of service, they'll be worth something at some point. And again, for 10 years.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. If we can take a picture with the board. Now we're going to jump to a 20-year anniversary for Miss Susana Limon. Would you please join? Ms. Limon was hired in February of 2004 as an office specialist in the Utilities Department. She became a document technician in 2007 and transferred to the Sheriff's Office in 2022, again in her current role. Ms. Limon enjoys going out to the mountains and camping. She enjoys spending time with her family and friends, especially when they travel together. She enjoys sightseeing when she travels, and most recently visited Pittsburgh to root for the Steelers. She became a fan through her boyfriend. I'd drop him right away. I'd get rid of that guy. You know, find a Dallas Cowboy fan. She's excited about some of her upcoming trips, which will include going to Florida, Nashville for a bachelorette party, and I've already given her some advice in terms of where to go, things to see in Nashville, and Indianapolis for work. Ladies and gentlemen, for 20 years of commitment to the county and the community, please join the commission in giving a special recognition to Miss Susana Limon. And again, to Miss Susana Limon, in appreciation for and recognition of 20 years of dedicated service to Doña County on behalf of the Board of County Commissioners and County Management, and a special logo, soon to be extinct pin, indicating 20 years of service. Thank you. Do we have Teresita Barraza here with us? Oh, please, I'm sorry, I didn't see you way back there. And if you have family, please bring them up. Absolutely, this is a special occasion. In this case, we have a retirement. Miss Teresita or Terry Barraza. and her husband, Sammy. Good morning. Ms. Barraza joined the Doña County Treasurer's Office in October of 2006 as an accounting specialist. In that role, she worked diligently on lockbox and reconciliation of accounts. In 2009, she was promoted to her current role, which is Cash Operations Supervisor. In this role, she supervises 6 document technicians and prepares a variety of reports. She prepares a daily deposit to the bank, which includes all cash and checks, and a report on all credit card and other transfers into the county. She also keeps track of all bankruptcies and prepares the monthly 10-year tax schedule maintenance report. Ms. Barraza is proud to be the person that others go to when they have questions, and she enjoys helping the document technicians when they are unable to balance their drawers. Hopefully that doesn't happen that often. When not at work, she enjoys learning about do-it-yourself projects and is an HGTV fanatic, especially when it comes to renovations. In retirement, she's looking forward to traveling with her retired husband, Sammy, and enjoying visiting their timeshares. Oh, I'd like to talk to you about that. I hope that you'll, in one of your renovations at the home, that you'll place this in a special location because it's given in that spirit. In honor of your service, Teresita D. Barraza, retired with distinction after 17 years of loyal service on the 31st of March of 2024. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a special recognition to our retiree. So Sammy shared with me that he thought that the perfect use for that plaque is to stack tacos across and use it to serve. So I think that's a wonderful idea as well. Mr. Chairman, thank you. That completes our employee recognition.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Macias. We have one proclamation, item number 15, which is to proclaim March as Women's History Month in Doña County. And we do have our Commissioner Chapato for that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am so proud and honored and excited to introduce this proclamation. And when I think of Women's History Month, I'm reminded of so many women on a national and local scale that we tend to recognize for their marks on history. And I'd like to recognize and first remember a person that has shaped my life, my mother, my tias, my primas, my sister, and Commissioner Murillo, so many women around me that deserve recognition, the women on the staff of Doña County, so our elected officials as well. So I appreciate all of you. And at this time, I'd like to welcome forward Ms. Doris Reyes and her family to the podium, please. Good morning, Shirley. Good morning, Mrs. Reyes. How are you? Mrs. Dolores Reyes, her position as one of the first Latina female postmasters has been trailblazing. Her representation is important. She's an intelligent woman who has not only been accomplished professionally, but has been a community activist before the word was invented. And she's embodied the type of mentorship and image that has expanded myself as a person, as an elected official, as a friend. Mrs. Reyes was born and raised in the village of Doña and still resides within a mile of her birthplace. She is fifth of 11 children born to Bernardino and Cilia Carrillo. She's always been a hardworking person, but started picking apricots and figs when she was only 8 years old. She attended Las Cruces High School, go Bulldogs, and she also worked at the Budget and White House department stores, where she would give her paycheck to her mother for clothes for younger siblings and would even surprise her mother with a new dress for her now and then. She still works harder than most of her family, harvesting pecans on the family farm, and is often the first to fill the first 5-gallon bucket. She's encouraged her daughter and her granddaughters to pick faster, saying each pecan was worth a penny. She is now a beloved mother of 3 and grandmother of 4, and great-grandmother of 7 children. Mrs. Reyes, I met you so many years ago when I was a teenager, and I can always say that you were so instrumental in helping shape me. And so you've always moved throughout your life with a quiet dignity, with grace, with compassion, and I will never forget coming to your house, and the first thing you would ask is, "Mija, are you hungry? Can I fix something for you to eat?" So it's with my pleasure that this proclamation for this wonderful Women's History Month is presented to you on behalf of the commission. Thank you for everything you've done. Thank you for allowing women like me to stand on your shoulders so that we can move forward. As Commissioner Murillo and myself and other women in my life are allowing other women to stand on our shoulders to move forward. I love you very much. Mr. Macias, proclamation, please.
Thank you. With your permission, Mr. Chairman. Whereas this Women's History Month, we celebrate all the courageous women who share our community who shape our community into a more inclusive, diverse, caring, and resilient one. By following their own path, we can see the many opportunities they made possible for others and the impact they have had on our society, family, and work. And whereas throughout history, the vision, persistence, and strong will of women like Dolores Doris C. Reyes led to a life that weaves our community together, positively impacting the lives of many. Today, she shares with us an inspiring life that brings us together in celebration of women's career, service to the community, and loving care of family. And whereas Doris, born in 1934 in the village of Doña, where she currently resides, is one of 11 children who graduated from Las Cruces High School in 1953. She married Zenon Reyes in 1957 and raised 3 children, Shirley, Samuel, and Russell. In 1967, she began her career as acting postmaster of the Doña Post Office and became its postmaster before the year's end. She held that post for 22 years, through 1989, when she retired. And whereas Doris often helped community members who had difficulty paying bills, filling out money orders, ensuring that they were addressed correctly, she fundraised for the Doña volunteer firemen, preparing and serving enchilada dinners. She also served as communion minister at Our Lady of Purification Church. And whereas in addition to her role as a pioneer and engaged member of her community in 1977, after her son Samuel sustained a spinal cord injury with subsequent quadriplegia, Doris became his primary caregiver, acting as an honorary nurse, doctor, and physical therapist, roles that she still holds to this day. Now, therefore, please join us in expressing our deepest gratitude and admiration for Doris C. Reyes, for her leadership and dedication to our community. In honor of her and countless women like her, the Doña County Board of County Commissioners does hereby proclaim the month of March as Women's History Month. Mr. Chairman, a proclamation for the consideration of the board.
Wonderful, thank you.
Mr. Chair, may I make a motion?
Of course.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Chaparro and a second by Vice Chair Murillo. Did anyone else want to speak?
Is there anything you'd like to say, Mrs. Reyes? Or anybody on behalf of your family?
I can't hear very well. Did you ask me something? Thank you.
It's our pleasure.
Brandy, would you like to make a roll call vote really quick?
Commissioner Reynolds,
Yes.
Commissioner Chaparro,
Yes.
Commissioner Sanchez,
Yes.
Vice Chair Murillo,
Yes.
Chair Sheldon Hernandez.
Yes. Motion passes.
I would like to say we are blessed to have such great leadership and females of this community. And so it's nice to recognize them.
Wonderful, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Moving on, we do have public input. Yoli, I am sorry, I was nowhere near where I said I'd be in timeline. But if you'd like to come up, please do sign the book to your left and address the commission. You will be timed at 3 minutes. Welcome.
Good morning, Chair Shalum Hernandez, Commissioner, staff, and public. My name is Yoli Diaz. I urge you to investigate Memorial Medical Center's abdication of its legal responsibility to prove access, even for indigents, to professional hospital care. MMC leases the hospital from Doña County and the city of Las Cruces. It is a New Mexico safety net care pool hospital operated by LifePoint Health, which is owned by private equity firm Apollo Global Management. This lease contains requirements regarding mental health care and provision of care to indigents, which MMC has too often ignored. As both public entities and landlords, the county and city have a duty to oversee MMC and hold it to the conditions stated in the lease. The public interest demands a thorough investigation of the lease between Doña County, City of Las Cruces, and Memorial Medical Center, and compliance with NMSA 1978, Chapter 27, Article 5. As you know, I have been advocating for access to needed health care, especially cancer treatment of chemotherapy and radiation at Memorial Medical Center since my first official meeting in October 2021 with County Manager Macias that included then Mayor Ken Miyagashima and Doña County Health and Human Services Director Jamie Michael. I followed up with email communication, requests for calls to action, solutions, and more. I have also done research and requested IPRAs known as record requests. I am concerned and dissatisfied with county managers and city managers' inaction, their duty to take action, the communication and findings. Therefore, as there has been no action provided to me to resolve access to needed health care or a direct written navigation for all Doña County residents to access needed health care at Memorial Medical Center, I am providing you the courtesy to know that I am distributing a letter urging to investigate, including submission to federal entities and U.S. senators investigating Apollo Global Management. My concerns are described in the letter. It includes that in our disenfranchised area, with only 3 for-profit hospitals, of these 3, 2 are major U.S. health systems. Of these same 3, 2 are owned by private equity firms. And of these same 3, 2 are rated the top 5th and 8th highest charge-to-cost ratio hospitals in New Mexico, which are known as markups, in a national report. These hospitals, Memorial and Mountain View Regional Medical Center, help New Mexico have the highest proportion of private equity-owned hospitals in the nation, 38%. Focus is maximizing profits, minimizing patient care. The only real action I know that is that my advocacy and Albuquerque Journal article reached senior financial investigative reporter for NBC Universal from New York City, Gretchen Morgensen, who is a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist. I look forward to her media regarding Memorial Medical Center because I know that it will include more issues than what I advocate for. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Travis Brown. I'm the Executive Director for the Southern New Mexico State Fair and Rodeo. And I just wanted to come and thank you for the approval of item 7 on today's consent agenda that issues the contract to create a master plan for the fairgrounds, and want to thank Mr. Herrera and his staff for moving forward with that. It's something that's been talked about for some time, and our board is very excited about the opportunity to see something put in place that is going to ensure that we continue to see the improvements that have occurred over the last several years. There are a lot of exciting things happening out there. The facility staff has been tremendous over the last several years, and so we're very excited about the improvements, and even more excited to see something that is put together that will guide us into the future. We are very excited about this year's event. Our dates are September 25th through the 29th. We've already started booking our entertainment and getting things squared away. There's potential for some improvements to the rodeo arena that will allow us to seat more of the public, which is always something that unfortunately we fill up the arena and people are not allowed to get in. So we're very excited about the opportunity to have more people experience our fantastic professional rodeo. And on a personal note, I just want to take an opportunity to thank Mr. Macias. He came on to the county shortly after I started with the Fair Board, and I would say initially the relationship between the Fair Board and county staff was probably not always very cordial, but I believe it was his leadership and the example that he set that trickled down through the rest of the staff that has brought us to the point where we are now, where we have a tremendous relationship with county staff. I believe we have a very strong relationship with you as a commission, and are seen as a group who is truly here to benefit the community, which is our purpose, to promote youth and agriculture within Doña County and the region. And I just want to thank him for his leadership, for coming out every year, with the exception of last year when Commissioner Chaparro filled in for him, and taking part in our opening ceremony. So it's truly been a pleasure working with you, sir. Thank you for all the effort that you've put into the fairgrounds and to making our organization stronger by providing us quality facilities. Wish you all the best in moving forward, and look forward to seeing you all out at this year's fair.
Mr. Chairman, may I just supplement that information that, again, the county is receiving $500,000 in a legislative appropriation to continue to make improvements at the fairgrounds.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Jody Kincaid. I have addressed you guys in the past in 2022 and 2023 on the issue of alleged election improprieties in the conduct and administration of our electoral process here. I wanted to come back and update a little bit of information to give you, well, an update. If you all saw in your email, I forwarded to you this weekend a copy of a movie put out by David Clements, from formerly of New Mexico State. And again, I wanted to talk about the fact that in the past, there were allegations of election improprieties, which I ask you to look at in our state. I think we've reached the point over the past year that they have gone past allegations, and they're very well documented. The company Smartmatic that developed the software that Dominion machines use is currently under indictment from the Department of Justice for interfering with the election in the Philippines in 2016 by using their software. That movie that I forwarded to you by Dr. Clements demonstrably and effectively proves that the Dominion machines are corrupt, that the election is fraudulent when those things are used and cannot be depended upon. It is your obligation under state law to ensure that we, the citizens of Doña County, have a safe and fair election. What we need to do is clean up our voter rolls. With all of the influx of illegal immigrants into this area, we need to make sure, using IDs, that only citizens are allowed to vote. And at the same time, we need to get rid of the Dominion machines and go back to paper ballots so that we can ensure that the election is fair and only one vote per person, per property, whatever you want to call it, is allowed to be admitted into the electoral process. I want you to do your job and clean up our system and give us fair elections in this county again. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Commissioners. Chair Shaljo Hernandez. My name is Gina Eugenia Montoya Ortega, and I'm here as a concerned, born and raised resident of Doña County in Las Cruces, New Mexico. The reason that I am here is I am asking you to reconsider not changing the county logo, which was voted upon yourselves and passed. The reason that I ask that you not do this is, to me, this is considered wasteful taxpayer dollars. What can be done with that money that that we don't even know what that's gonna cost? Money that can be used, that Yoli's here constantly asking for, advocating for people with cancer. What about the fine staff that all the county has? This can go towards their raises. What about the crisis triage center? So that is why that I am here as a concerned taxpayer asking you to reconsider changing the logo. If the logo was a human being, it could actually file an EEOC. It is being discriminated. It is being discriminated on its color. It is being discriminated on its race, and it is being discriminated on its age. I know that you all use the term modernization. Well, if it's not broken, why fix it? The logo actually represents New Mexico. It represents my ancestors that came from Spain in the 1500s. On April 4th, of 2023, there was a luncheon from Avita. And the presentation was from the Dallas Federal Reserve Bank, stating U.S. and Las Cruces economy outlook amid failing inflation, economy is slowed. In my current job, working for the government, I go above and beyond in not wasting taxpayer dollars, and I ask the same from you. The city of Las Cruces did the same thing, changing the logo of the crosses. What could have been done with that money? A lot. In a recent meeting with Chief Story, they could use the money for
incentive to keep their police officers. You can't find a police officer to almost save your life. Also, they need a real-time crime center. This money could be used towards that. So once again, I am here asking you to reconsider what I call, and what the majority of the Las Cruces and Doña County residents, of wasteful taxpayer dollars. To me, this is another scene Oñate being named Oregon Mountain. What could have been done with that money? What could have been done for the students, the staff, who in turn affect the community? So once again, I ask you to please reconsider and not waste our taxpayer dollars. Do more research, because you can't even tell me what this is going to cost. Thank you for your time.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. My name is Michelle Correa, and I'm currently the Director for the Spay Neuter Action Program. We're item number 4 on the agenda today, and I would just like to thank you all for approving the increase in the amount so that we can continue to provide services to low-income residents in unincorporated areas of the county, to provide spay-neuter services for their companion pets. I would like to thank very much County Manager Macias in helping us, Mary Lou Ward and her folks, and anyone else who has continued to partner with SNAP through the years. We are on track, based on our metrics so far this year, to probably exceed 2,500 vouchers this year. We did about 2,150 last calendar year, and the demand has just been great and has not slowed down. So thank you so much for continuing to partner with us. It really makes a difference in the county and with your constituents in helping to get their animals spayed and neutered, in turn reducing the numbers that end up going to the shelter. So thank you, thank you, thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to recognize the fact that our State Senator Bill Souls just walked in. Just welcome.
Hey, Bill. Didn't you see any other public comment? Seeing none, I'll move on to staff input.
Commissioner Shalum Hernandez. My name is Anita Skipper. I'm the Public Information Officer for Doña County. Fellow Commissioners, I'm here today just to give you a brief update on the logo and the branding standards transition. But before I start, I'd like to acknowledge that the decision to change the logo has not been done lightly. You all, better than anyone, can attest to the fact that this has been many years in the making prior to even me starting here at Doña County. Our logo is a symbol of our identity, our values, and our commitment to progress. And in this transition, we also recognize the history of the existing logo, which is why we now have a logo and a seal. And so as our community evolves, it's important that our visual representation reflects these changes accurately. So I want to assure the taxpayers that we are acting responsibly. We are looking at the most budget-friendly options to changing things, including transitioning out of many of the resources we have versus just getting rid and purchasing things frivolously. So we're encouraging staff to continue using their current items, and then when it's time to purchase the new items that they would purchase anyway, do so with the new logo. So as an update for you, there's a lot been happening internally. I'm calling this our pre-transition phase. I've been meeting with staff, department heads, and particularly our facilities and our fleet directors, because they will have the biggest change because of the number of resources, the number of vehicles, the number of buildings. And so they both have come up with a plan on how to transition with the least budgetary impact as well. The logo is a part of a broader branding strategy. So a lot of people are focused on the logo, but there's more to it. We actually are in the process of a marketing campaign. This is reaching out to the community in an aspirational way, asking them who they want us to be, and then challenging us to be that for them. And so you'll start to see a marketing campaign in the next couple of weeks with the message to our residents. You'll have the logo rollout, but we're also introducing branding guidelines for the county. That's something that has never been in place as far as I know. And that's very important for an organization to have a consistent message, image, and look, not just across our communications, but it's the way that others see us as well. And so if any of us have ever had any information outside of Doña County, typically any company you work for has a brand, and you can't deviate from that. And here at the county, we've had everyone doing their own thing. And so this is a way to bring all of us into one accord with a brand for Doña County. We're also in the process of implementing our strategic plan. We've had the meetings already, bringing the residents in. All of this is working together. So for those people who feel like this is taking a long time, I'm just giving you a little peek inside the curtain to let you know there are a lot of things happening around this branding strategy, as well as new software we're starting to use that I'm sure will be announced to the public very soon, called Achieve It, which will allow the public to see the priorities and things that we as county departments are working on, greater transparency for them as well. So just wanted to give you an update because you all have been big part of choosing the logo and how we move forward and what you were interested in seeing. So stay tuned for the next couple of weeks as we have, while we're doing currently the internal rollout and pre-transition, we will have a public rollout here very soon that I hope you all will be a part of. Now I stand for any questions you have. Thank you.
No questions. Thank you, Ms. Gipper. Any other staff input? Seeing none, we're going to move on to elected official. Oh, county elected official input. Yes. Good morning, Sheriff.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. You have a short meeting today, so I'm going to take a little bit of your time here, and I apologize in advance. A lot has been spoken of in the last week or 2, 3, 4 about real-time crime centers. Shortened version is RTCCs. In fact, it was just mentioned here moments ago. And I wanted to clarify and let you know how these centers generally work, why they work, and how they work. Real-time crime centers are not new in the United States. They've been around since 2005 or so. In 2015, they really began to uptick in terms of proliferation. And that is primarily in large cities. In our state, the only place that has that currently is Albuquerque. The next closest location is the El Paso Fusion Center. So I'm going to make this available to you now. If you'd ever like to go visit that center, I can arrange for that because it's quite eye-opening and it's magnificent and it's huge. So what I want to clarify is RTCCs are years in the making. They're 5 to 10 years from insight or inception to actual realization. Generally, we do these in steps. So I am a proponent of and follower of 21st century policing. The 6 pillars of that program, that's our roadmap, it's been my roadmap since I was first elected, has one of those pillars is technology and bringing technology in to help fight crime in a real-time sense, all right? Last week was the first time I've been asked by the county administration as to whether we're aware of RTCCs and our role. and I appreciate the county attorney's interest. This is the only time I've ever been asked or it's been inquired about. And yes, we are more than aware. We've been working with the city for several months in terms of moving this forward, because I'm not going to read to you what you can read here, but please note number 4, integration. It works in collaboration with other law enforcement agencies. So their center may operate partially alone. Ours may operate partially alone, but ours is regional collaboration. So when we recently received $650,000 in appropriation from the state, it did go to the city for a line item. We didn't have that ability to bring it to us, so we moved it to them. Tomorrow, I'm meeting with Chief Story, and we will begin to draft a JPA agreement, because that really is the beginning to move together in synchronicity. Let me point out where we are today as a county in terms of technology. I cannot push a button on my radio and speak directly to the city of Las Cruces. That's where we are today. And I know Chief Cherry is smiling behind me because he and I have been busy working on this interoperability for over 3 years. That's the beginning. If we cannot be interoperable at that level, we cannot be interoperable at any level. That's basic. That's basic platform. Okay, beyond that, let's look at steps. Generally, it's considered there are 5 levels of developing RTCCs. Our agency has been working at this for almost 4 years. When I came in, we began the process. What did we do? We began an intel unit. I have an intel unit now. I have 2 deputies and a lieutenant working on that. What else did we do that rose us to a level 2? We have drones. We have 4 drones, and we have a drone unit. What else do? We have what are called flock cameras, and you may have heard something about those. Flock cameras, we have 30 in the county, and flock cameras are on various positions on major roadways, not I-25 and not Interstate 10, but on all the roads that we can control. Why do we have that? Those cameras are measuring license plates, passing them in real time. So you might say, well, what's the value? Well, the value is we don't need to chase them. We can follow the camera. We can see where those vehicles are heading and either put out spike strips, something in advance, or in some cases, we actually know the residence they're going to, unfortunately. So we know generally these movements without putting our lives and the public at risk with doing these pursuits and that kind of thing. Our cars read that. Every unit can read those LPRs, those license plate readers. So when it hits, it comes across actually on their phones. And if you'd like me to hook you up, you'll see every stolen hitting every camera. Now, let me tell you, that's the step, okay? So there are 3 other steps. I've asked for positions for the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, as long as I've been able to, for special positions, because they're not all deputy positions that run real-time crime centers. They're intel analysts. We just have one now. I don't even think she's completed a year with us. We finally got an intel analyst. We need civilian support staff, professional staff, and I'm not talking about, often they're highly paid staff. So that's been a challenge too, to move some of these positions into a place where they're being paid for professional services and analysis. So I say this to you today to point out that I recognize our desire to have something now, to have something immediate. This is not it. So throwing money at things, this is a long-term project. I'm not going to come in here and ask you for $5 trillion to put it into effect tomorrow, okay? It'll be staggered, it'll be a step as long as I remain the sheriff. And my goal is by the time the next sheriff comes along, we'll be so firmly involved with this that it will be a difficult thing not to continue our pursuit, because my worst fear is we waste taxpayer money. So I appreciate it. I hope this sort of helps get this in perspective, because it certainly has been bandied about in the last 2 or 3 weeks. Any questions?
Any questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner.
I just want to say I agree with you, Sheriff, and I applaud your efforts. And I appreciate the comments indicating, where it's is not, I know everybody wants to fix the problem now, but it takes time. And so I would hope that, I think as we're working on the strategic plan for the county and developing that this might be a good opportunity for us to have, so that we can have that vision with you over the next, to build this over the next few years. And that way we don't lose focus on it, and we can support you in how we can with this goal.
Well, thank you. And it would be something all chiefs, 4 chiefs and NMSU chief, we would all have to be involved. We have spoken recently with Director Stephen Lopez regarding a space if OEM got it. Bear in mind, there's a SCIF, unused SCIF, I won't go into that detail, but there's an unused SCIF at NMSU as well. So thank you for that, because it does take all of us imagining the same spot on the horizon. How we move in that direction will rely on old how do I say it, old disagreements, old attitudes about each other, and I'm talking about the law enforcement agencies. Those must crumble. Those must go away for these kinds of regional projects to really work. So I thank you for your support.
I do have a question, Sheriff. You did mention number 4, which was integration with other government departments, which I think is wonderful. Is it going to, you talked about a regional approach to this, so is that regionally Doña County, or is that regionally going out to parts of Otero and other counties as well, or are we just focusing on Doña?
Thank you. Just Doña County. That would be a lift that would probably require federal assistance. But for us, it would be pretty significant. Recently, I want to just share one episode. We had a missing individual who I was quite certain, based on information I received at the outset, that he was actually a homicide victim. We tracked his car, which was stolen, going south into El Paso. His body, unfortunately, was recovered on military base there, but that helped us move in the direction in real time as to where the suspects were traveling. There's one in custody for that homicide now. So I'm sorry I digress, but it shows you that when it went there, that went to the FBI, and of course it's state lines. But I do invite you to come with me to the El Paso Fusion Center anytime. We can make that happen. I think it's like anything, a picture's worth 1,000 words.
Awesome, thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Commissioner.
Mr. Chair, thank you, Madam Sheriff. As the chair of the MRVDA board the last 2 years, previous 2 years, this communication situation is actually dire. And we have invested over $2 million in the last 6 months in order to try to alleviate that problem. And I know the sheriff says this won't affect the other counties, but in fact, it will affect the other counties, in my opinion, because we were already back up for Otero County and also, I think, for Luna County in emergency situations where their systems are down. So yes, if we in fact do have a CTCC center here, we will still represent several other counties in the process, and therefore we probably should in the future consider the need for us to bring them into the situation too. So I believe that we are so far behind the 8 ball for the crisis triage, for the crime center real time, that we need to take this seriously and start to really understand over the next 6 months how this is going to impact our budget for the next 3 years. So, and I can tell you that if we are fortunate that we haven't had a Uvalde here, with the communication problems that we've had in this area that she's talked about, if we did, we would have struggled with the same problems they had of who's in charge, who's on first, who's on second, and what the hell are we doing? And with that, with the CTC center and plan and proper technology, we have a much better opportunity of preventing a situation like that where everything is out of control. And that's another reason why I focused as chair on ensuring that we got a communication system that everybody could talk to. And that includes fire, ambulance, border patrol, state police, every organization that communicates through the MRVDA unit. Now we all in the next 6 months should be able to speak to each other, like you said, by just pushing a phone, pushing a button. And that in itself is going to help us to be, at least take the first step toward providing real-time crime center technology that will start to protect more of our people in the county real time. So I know it sounds, and you're right, cost maybe way above where we can go in short term, but it certainly is a plan that we need to have on the books and start working that way as much as we can, as quickly as possible, to prevent us from being caught on our heels when it does happen. And I don't think that, I don't want to say it will, but I got to say the probability is very high. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Any other Come on up, Madam Clerk.
Hello, good morning, Chair, Commission. Amanda Lopez-Askin, Doña County Clerk. Here to, in case you didn't know, today is filing day. It's almost, I'm trying to use, I always try to use sports analogies. I don't know if it would be the picks, somebody help me out here. No. It's when you get drafted. This is draft day for us. Thank you very much in preparation for the Super Bowl, which is our election coming up. So I just wanted to let you know that that is going on in our hallway. We try to make it a very festive environment, get everyone taken care of as quickly as we can. I also wanted to just kind of highlight the idea that we are headed into election season as a whole. And so that means that there may be misinformation, malinformation that is given to the public. And I suspect, with this being a high profile, high stakes election, although all of them are on some level, but this one will be highly watched, not just here locally, regionally, but as well as nationally. So I would hope that if any of you have any questions about our electoral process, the security, the integrity, the fairness of our elections, that you come and talk to me directly, and I'd be happy to speak with you, show you, do all the things that we do to reassure our voters that we in New Mexico should be very proud of our elections. We continue to be ranked high in election integrity across the country. And there are a lot of lists that we're not happy about being on, but elections and where we rank is not one of them. I will say that the integrity of our staff as well as our poll officials that work our elections is outstanding, and I continue to be proud to work with them. I also just want to remind folks of some accurate information. We actually do require voter ID in New Mexico. There are 3 ways in which a voter may identify themselves at a polling location, and whichever one they choose is up to them. Additionally, when you register to vote, we verify your identity with an identification. And so we are fortunate, again, in New Mexico to provide voters high access combined with high security, because you can do both at once. So again, welcome to election season. I'm sure you all will be watching it very closely. I will periodically respond to any misinformation that is given to you all, just to clarify. And again, happy to answer any questions you all may have separately from that. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, there was a misspoken statement by one of the people in input. You can stand if you want. And that is, he said that we need to use paper ballots instead of machines. Well, in fact, we do paper ballots in the state. and they are always available to verify that the machines are accurate if there's ever a challenge to the
Correct.
system. So the misstatement that he made that we don't use paper ballots and we need to go back to them, we've always had paper ballots to go back to.
Mr. Chair, Commission, yes, Commissioner Reynolds is correct. New Mexico does utilize paper ballots. For a very small amount of time, they did not. That was quickly rectified. I believe that's one of the gold standards. That's one of the reasons that we are on higher lists of election integrity, because we can always basically audit a given race or an entire election because we do have the physical paper ballot. It's a gold standard that I hope we always keep, and I will always advocate for that, whether it be at the local level or at the legislative level. So thank you, Commissioner. Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Any other elected official comment? You don't even want to come up and say hi? You're just sitting there? Well, I mean, you never know. Okie dokie. Next up is commission input. Commissioners. Okay, I do have a little bit of input, and that is that Slavin and Associates will be coming into town to meet with the commissioners as well as any elected official on a one-on-one basis. They will be here Tuesday, March 26th, which is our commission day, through the 28th. They will be reaching out for those meetings, so please do answer any Georgia phone numbers that pop up on your phone. That's really my only comment. Yes, Commissioner Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have several announcements. First one is that the Baton Memorial March is going to be this Saturday out at White Sands Missile Range Parade Grounds. The festivities begin at 6 a.m. if anyone would like to join me there. So I'll be there. The second thing is we have a Spaceport Regional Tax Board meeting this Friday at 1 o'clock here in the chamber. And so you're welcome to attend that as well. Another one is I wanted to make what I consider to be a public service announcement. And this week I actually created an endowment in my wife's name for the Soar Optimus organization. And it's actually with the Community Foundation. And I welcome any of you who would like to provide some support for that as a 501c3 donation to reach out to Community Foundation, or I'll have actually a link to that pretty soon. And if you want to know more about Soar Optimus, I'm happy to share, but I won't do it here at this time. But they're a great organization that help a lot of women. And my wife considered herself one of those women before I met her, and that's the reason we supported it. The last thing I wanted to talk about is that we have an assistant that's been appointed. It's a full-time assistant at the county, and I have some questions about that. When Commissioner Sanchez and I asked to have Yesenia appointed as a full-time assistant, we were told that that wasn't what we passed as a board, that the position was actually a part-time position that couldn't be shared between two people. And so I think that, I'd like to hear how we can do that, since we did not budget for any full-time positions as a commissioner assistant. And I think that's a violation of the budget policy that we created in June of last year. So if someone could explain that for me, I would love to hear a good explanation, because I think there's several people who were involved in the decision, but I think it violates the policy, and unless the board voted on it while I was gone, the policy hasn't changed. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other commission comment? Seeing none, we will move on to presentations, which we do have a presentation by our County Treasurer, Mr. Eric Rodriguez, which is number 16, the presentation of the investment portfolio mid-year review. Welcome.
Good morning. I told you I'd be up here. Good morning, Commissioners, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Eric Rodriguez, County Treasurer. So as you may know, my responsibilities as County Treasurer are to collect county revenues, distribute county revenues, manage county revenues or county funds. And today I'm here in that third capacity of the management of the investment portfolio, providing you with a mid-year review. As you're aware, fiscal period for county is from June to July. So I'm providing you with information as of close of day, December 31st, 2023, which really captures on a calendar year of the 2023 what the investment portfolio looked like. And so we will go over some of those, some of that information for the portfolio. In this presentation, I'll be covering the composition of the portfolio, what the liquidity looks like, what risk exposure we have, and finally, we'll go over the earnings. And again, the data is presented for the end of the fiscal, for mid-year fiscal period. So in our first slide here, we will go over our primary objectives. This is fairly standard across the board for any investment portfolio. First, we want to focus on safety, make sure that we do not lose any money. Our assets are safe and secured, and we don't take on any exposure in that regard. Liquidity, we want to make sure that our checks are clearing the bank, and we want to make sure that we meet budgetary demands per fiscal period. And the last thing that we focus on is the actual return of the investment portfolio. That's not our primary objective. That is our third objective in that order. So in spirit of the objectives, I want to provide to you what that investment portfolio looks like and how it's in line with our objectives. The summary of the portfolio, we have our portfolio balance currently, or at the end of December 31st, at $267 million. The state reserve requirement for a county budget is for FY24 was $23 million. As you can see, we were over that reserve requirement by at least 8 times. I do want to make a note that on the portfolio balance that you see of $267 million, about $48 million of that was property tax revenues that we were holding on to, and about $18 million of that is revenues coming in for the Spaceport GRT, which the county is still holding on to that. The value of the portfolio at that time was $262 million. What we purchased was at $267, giving us net unrealized loss of $5 million, which you do see those unrealized costs in the budget when they're doing the budget. But it's very important to note that we do not, that's if we decided to sell at that current point in time everything that we had in our portfolio, we would take a $5 million loss. Fortunately, we have a buy and hold strategy, which means we don't sell anything until it matures, and therefore it matures at par value, and that is that value right there that you see of $267 million. So if we were to sell everything when it matures and when we do sell it, we will actually have a net gain of about $1 million. The performance of the portfolio is a book yield currently at 5.121. If you compare that to our benchmarks very easily of the 2-year Treasury, which is at 4.25, we are outperforming that. A comparable portfolio, which is really on the shorter term though, is New Mexico LGIP. I want to note that the Mexico LGIP, which at the time was at yielding 5.373%, is one of the highest in the nation, at least in the current rate environment. And the reason they yield so high is because as current rates are super high right now, the shorter you stay, the more you capture of those high interest rates, because currently the yield curve is higher on the front end, which is in the short term, 3 months, 6 months, even a year, and it goes lower on the longer end. And so the shorter you stay, the more you retain on earnings, and that is where the Mexico LGIP pool stands, is it really focuses more on the 3-month, 2-month maturities versus longer term. So we are staying competitive with our yield, and we are, at least on a comparable basis, we are staying in line with where we should be. And then we'll talk a little bit more on the slide, the beginning, on the following slides as to how we don't want to continue to be in the position where we're at now, because if interest rates start going down, then we are exposed to getting hit with losses, or at least opportunity costs there of not moving our money around. The diversification of the investment portfolio is in this graph. As you can see, there's just two primary asset classes that we're focused on, and one of them is agencies, and these are the mortgage-backed agencies, which include Fannie Mae, Freddie Macs, the agencies that are low risk, but allow us to capture some investment revenue on the longer term, 2-3 year marks. The other side of it, the orange part, is our money markets. And our money markets were heavily weighted on here. At the time, we had 110 million. Again, going back to my previous note, about $60 million of that 110 is actually fiduciary funds, which will be distributed for property taxes and eventually for the spaceport GRT. So that graph would go down if I excluded those two primary fiduciary fund amounts. Nevertheless, we are looking to expand our CDs holdings right here, which is only at $25 million at the time. Currently, there's some opportunities to capture return on the CD market and go longer, the 2-3 years versus staying very short on the money markets where we're at currently. On the local side, we have $17 million invested locally into our local banks. We are increasing that, and we're currently in negotiations with adding another bank to that portfolio. And we will be switching our strategy to invest. Instead of having a minimum of 10% invested locally, we're going to increase that to 20%. As interest rates are high, local banks, or really banks throughout the country, are looking for deposits. And so I think that's a market that we could assist, at least locally, but providing a little bit more deposits from our investment portfolio. And so we will be increasing that diversification to at least 20 million. And then other asset classes include our U.S. Treasury bonds and municipal bonds as well. This is just pretty much the same thing, but it's broken down by asset class, and it helps us identify where we're heavily weighted and where we need to back off from. Our money markets is 41% of our portfolio. Per our investment policy, we cannot invest more than 60% in the money market, so we're well under that. Other limits are for 35% for many of our other asset classes, such as the mortgage-backed securities, municipal bonds, U.S. Treasuries. As you can see, we are well under each asset class. And what this does is make sure that we limit our risk exposure for any asset class concentrations. And that's what this graph really shows you, is making sure that we're staying within the limits of the investment portfolio. And it gives us on a percentage basis where we're more heavily weighted in terms of where our asset classes are at. Then we have our maturity distribution. And so we always want to see a downward slope on our maturity distribution. And if I took away all the excess fat from this graph right here, which is funds that are held in fiduciary capacity, this would decrease a little bit and you would get a clearer picture of that downward slope. But, we've always used a laddered approach. And what that means is as assets come mature or come due, we invest further out on the yield curve. And as they are coming up, then we continue just throwing them out on the yield curve and spreading out those maturities. We don't want to be in a position where we had 161 million here in 3 to 4 years or here in 2 to 3 years. We want to be heavily a position where we have cash flows, so we'll always meet our budgetary demands, but not too much. And in this case, we are, because of those additional funds, not too much where we're not capturing revenue further down the yield curve or further down the maturity curve. And again, because of interest rates, right now the opportunity is to stay short to capture more interest versus going longer. And I think in any investment portfolio that you see across the government spectrum, you'll probably see very similar maturity distributions because people want to stay short because it pays more money to stay short. And this is a breakdown of that maturity distribution. And what this graph here, or this table here, helps us identify is where we take on risk the most in terms of where we're heavily weighted. So this is based on weight of asset class on the maturity scale. And so just to kind of give you like what I'm looking at here is I look at where most of our where most of our money is allocated to, and at what time and what point in time will that money come due. As you could see here, in the 1.4 to 1.7 years terms is where a lot of our maturities are going to come due. If in a year and a half to a year or to 2 years, the Federal Reserve just drops interest rates significantly like they did during the pandemic in 2020, then we're going to be sitting on about $190 million worth of cash that we're going to have to invest in a very low rate environment. And that is similar to what happened in 2020 and 2021, 2022. We had to invest in those lower yield assets, and we had a very, on our yield rate, we had a much lower yield rate because we had to lock in those assets at the time. And so that's the exposure that we try to keep an eye on to make sure that we spread that exposure and we're not too concentrated on that. But that's what this graph helps us identify, is what kind of risk exposure we have to interest rate changes. And so credit quality, we want to make sure that, you know, safety is our priority, and that we make sure that all the assets that we purchase have some sort of safety mechanism in it. Any asset that is not secured by FDIC insurance, which we have about $15 million of our portfolio is FDIC insured, it's collateralized by the banks, and we have $14 million of that. Everything else, such as the mortgage-backed securities that are issued by government agencies, municipal bonds, they have a credit rating, and that credit rating is usually prime credit ratings from AAA to AA3 on the Moody's scale is what we use. And just to give you a perspective of where our assets are, as you can see, nothing falls under this A2 rating scale. Everything's prime rated. Everything down here would certainly expose us to more risk potentially, whether it's a bank going out of business, you know, a commercial, a private bond that from a private company that might not be able to pay their bond payments. Those are usually in this space right here, but we tend to stay on the higher level to make sure we don't take on that exposure. Then we have our total earnings trend. We compare up to 5 years, so you could see, I know on the grand scheme of things, how the portfolio's been performing, comparable to prior years. And so in FY 2020, we had reached a peak of 1.5 million. At the time, we were excited. We say, wow, this is the highest we've ever had it. And then suddenly the pandemic hits, we have interest rates being cut, and then you see that decline to $786,000. Then the following year, we do a little bit better. But then suddenly interest rates increased significantly, and this was in the Fed Reserve's effort to try to control inflation. And that increase, you can see it right here, and it's very tangible that we increased our investment portfolio holdings to $3.7 million at the end of FY 23. At the mid-year review of December 31st, we had already booked $2.6 million in that for FY 24. We are on track to break the $5 million mark, another new record for our investment portfolio, and that is very exciting, I think, for us. This is a five-year monthly comparisons earnings. A lot going on here, but really I just want to show you much of the same thing broken down on the month-to-month basis. As some of these assets pay quarterly, semi-annually, you're going to see more in the December and the middle of the year where these payments come in. But if I were to project these green lines, it doesn't look green at the time, but these are green. If I was to project where these green bars would end up in the next 6 months, I would say that they're going to be outperforming these maroon bars, which was last year, and that's just kind of a projection to support the fact that we're going to be breaking the $5 million investment revenue mark at the end of June this year. And this is our investment report card, I'd like to call it. Per our investment objectives, safety, liquidity, and return. We want to make sure that we manage those parameters, which are an investment policy, that we're not outside of those parameters and we're investing within the policy. I'm not going to go through these, but as you can see in compliance, we meet all of them. The last one on the performance benchmark says no. That is actually a typo. We also are meeting that at 5.121. We are outperforming the 3-month U.S. Treasury by at least 1 to 2 percentage points. So that is actually a yes for the return, and we are meeting all our parameters for compliance. So moving forward, what kind of strategy are we currently taking on? So we continue to take advantage of the recent rate increases, focus on the laddered portfolio. Again, just spreading out the maturities. So once they're coming due, we're throwing them back in to the 4 or 5 3-year marks. Managing forecast cash flows to maximize on long-term holdings. We don't want, again, to be holding all our cash as interest rates are going down in one asset class, and that's currently like money markets, for example, or savings accounts. We want to spread it out because at one point, if interest rates do start coming down, we want to be in a position where we are already locked in today's rates for the long term. And that goes hand in hand with secure long calls or bullet holdings. We want to increase our brokered CD holdings, which carry more minimal risk and have good spreads, and that's what I talked about a little bit on the distribution graph. And then finally, we want to expand our duration benchmarks. That's just saying that we don't want to be holding a bag of cash when interest rates drop, and then we have to invest in that one market or in that one maturity, that rate environment at the time. We want to spread it to make sure that we are capturing as much yield on the long run, and we have minimal exposure to fluctuations in interest rates. And economic factors, external factors that might affect the portfolio. In 2003, the unemployment was near 50-year lows at 3.7%, and there was wage growth, and it was posted as a 4.1% wage growth. Core personal consumption to PCE, and this is what the Federal Reserve looks like, was at 2.9%. Target for the Federal Reserve is at 2%, but I want to note that 2 years ago in 2022 in the summer, we were closer to 9% inflation, so there has been significant improvement in the inflationary factors. 3.2% GDP increase, and there has been 6 quarters with GDP increases in the last years, and expected decreases are to come in 2024 as the high interest rate environment starts taking a toll on GDP. Again, that's just forecasted as 1.5% growth for 2024. But GDP is continuing to stay strong, and that just means people are working, there's money in people's pockets still. And what that continues to mean is there's still demand for goods and services. If there's demand for goods and services, inflation continues to have pressure. And so, and last week when Powell's congressional hearing, he reinforced his position that the Fed is not ready to start cutting interest rates just yet. And so if we were to be having this presentation back around October, November, I would have said the markets are anticipating 6 rate cuts, some of them even up to 8 rate cuts in 2024. Just 3 short months later, we're now saying there might be 1 rate cut, maybe 2, or maybe they just keep it the same because the economy continues to be strong. On the local level, I didn't go too much into analysis on the local level, but based on the budgetary meetings that we've had with finance and some of the GRT data that we kind of looked at in terms of what the county receives, there seems to be some stabilizing of GRT growth and potentially even starting to slow down. And so on that front, you'll see more of that during your budgetary hearings, is what to expect in the future years. As far as what employment numbers that came in last week, the strongest employment numbers are coming from the government sector. And I think that's a huge, because in lieu of all the influx that the government has been receiving. and all the new projects, whether it's infrastructure or otherwise. I think there's a lot of employment coming from the government sector, the healthcare sector, and finally the food and services sector, as well as what's really keeping job growth at a steady pace. And so, Commissioners, the presentation really is to give you an idea of what our portfolio looks like in terms of revenues coming in, forecasting what we can expect in the next year or two, and just bringing you this to the Board of Finance and your capacity in the Board of Finance and being aware of how the money is being managed. So I will now stand for any questions.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, of course.
Thank you. Mr. Rodriguez, I just wanted to mention that I am very, very happy with your work as our treasurer. You've done an exceptional job with the county's money and the money of our residents here in Doña County. So my many thanks to you and your staff.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you for the kind words.
Any other? Yes, Commissioner Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Chavarro. You've done an excellent job. I do have a question about what are you having any recommendations on? Should we continue to keep a balance that high since our required balance is only 23 million, or should we try to think about opportunities or reasons to divest some of that money and actually invest in some infrastructure that we need now in the county, or some future opportunities? I mean, what would be your recommendations for that money to keep investing it? Because what you've said, it looks like the market trend is going to go down
eventually.
Okay, so either we're gonna not earn as much, or we're going to lose some money if we leave it in those balances. And would you recommend that we try to find ways to redistribute that money into other opportunities to make investments in infrastructure or something else here locally? What would you think about that?
You have to keep it separate. And as far as the investment portfolio, that's just funds that I'm holding until they're needed per budgetary demands. And if our budget office and our finance department was here, they would say, those funds, we're already tapping into reserves. And I believe that's the expectation this year, is that they'll be tapping into reserves. Those funds were already pegged for projects, whether it's projects or whether it's operational needs. Those are already established for that. If you're looking solely on the investment side, we don't want to be holding on to cash. And what I mean by cash is, I'm investing it in money markets where the bulk of it is currently, because that's where the return is at. What I mean by investing it into the future is locking in that cash on the longer front, so that we continue capturing the current interest rates that we have now. But once they come due, and as the county needs money for its budgetary needs, that's where the liquidity is going to come into play and make sure that we could use it for that. Locking up that cash for infrastructure projects and investing in that, that's your decision as county commissioners on the policy side, how you're going to budget for it. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I, as a county treasurer, could say, hey, yeah, let's invest this, or I recommend that we invest in a certain project or not. It's just as the cash is needed, I want to make sure that it's available to you to determine if you want to invest in infrastructure projects.
So if I understand you correctly, then what you're saying is that we have a reserve, and if we are taking from our reserve, we could actually liquidate some of these investments and put them in the reserve in order to rebuild our reserve back up and make it more available. Is that what you're saying?
Not necessarily. The reserve is already part of the money that I invest.
That's what I thought.
Includes
Okay, right.
reserves.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, we don't keep. We have our checking accounts where we issue payments. We distribute funds out, but we try to keep those balances in those accounts minimal, because our cash is working for us every single day, whether it's in the money market, whether it's in the CD or whatever, but it's working for us every single day. And as we need the cash to meet payroll, meet accounts payable, we distribute it into those accounts, and then they're being shot out for those purposes. So the reserve, the overall amount that I'm managing, part of that, yes, is reserve. Part of that is operational expenditures that we need for this year. It's just how I move the cash around to make sure that it's making revenue at the time and not just idly sitting in a checking account. I don't separate reserves from operational. I don't separate it by funds. I don't separate it by accounts or budgetary needs. It's all in one pool. As I know however much liquidity is needed by the county, then we distribute money to make sure that we're able to meet those budgetary requests.
Looking at the mechanisms you're using for investment, though, you are considering both short-term and long-term needs to some degree, because there's some, you're saying we need a certain amount of access, a certain amount of ability to have access to a certain amount of cash.
Yes, sir.
In a short time, because you're investing in some short-time funds as well.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's kind of what I'm asking is should we, I love what you're doing. Should we as a county be considering, or this board be considering possible needs in the next 2025 or 2026? And I'm going to use this term, but please don't take this as a recommendation or suggestion. I mean, the CTCC, the sheriff's talked about. I mean, if we have a project like that where we know we're going to need funds over a significant period of time, should we be looking into your investments to try to align those with those projects, or should we be looking for projects like that so we can work with you in order to make sure the money's going to be available when it's time to make the investment?
It could go either or. But yeah, let's say you wanted to invest $20 million in some sort of project in 2026.
Right.
If I don't know about it and I'm not positioned at the time to have the liquidity, we're going to be in a tight spot. Our current portfolio tries to mitigate that by saying we need to keep at least 20% of our portfolio in liquid assets where they come mature
90
whether
days.
overnight or in 3 months or less,
Yeah.
so that we would position ourselves right away and get the cash.
Right.
But yeah, if you have those long-term projects, that's something that we try to stay in touch with the finance department or budget office to make sure that we know that those big budget items are coming. We position our liquidity needs in lieu of that, not the other way around. And so, yeah, there's that communication to make sure that we're aware of that. There are the dynamic cash flows, which means we could have, unexpected expenditures. And so we think that within the 20% mitigation amount for the portfolio to keep it liquid, at least 20%, we think that we could cover some of those unexpected expenditures for the county.
Yeah,
But an overall budget overview, yeah, as long as we're aware ahead of time of those big budget items, we could certainly position ourselves to make sure that we're maximizing every dollar until it's time to use them.
Yeah, so the 20% you're talking about actually exceeds our reserve requirement.
Yes.
And still provides us with some other liquidity that we can access if we need to. So,
Oh, absolutely, yes.
all right.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Any other comments or questions for our county treasurer? Seeing none, thank you so much,
Mr. Chair.
Eric, for joining us today and giving us
Thank you.
this
Thank you
presentation.
for your time, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Next up is going to be the approval of the minutes from the February 27th meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Chapato and a second by Commissioner Sanchez. Brandy?
Commissioner Reynolds?
Yes.
Commissioner Chaparro?
Yes.
Commissioner Sanchez?
Yes.
Vice Chair Murillo?
Yes.
Chair Shaljo Hernandez?
Yes, motion does pass. Minutes are approved. Going on, we do have commissioner input. Any follow-up to any?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, of course.
we do have item number 5 for approval.
We already did that. You
did I
were
miss
gone. You did. It passed.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry. Okay, any commissioner follow-up input? Seeing none, we're going to move on to correspondence. Brandy?
We have, excuse me, we have 4 today. Michael Sagia versus Doña County. Jeremiah Anderson versus Doña County. Herman Garcia versus Doña County. And Todd Gregory versus Doña County.
Thank you, Brandy. Okay, that's it for today. The time is 11:24, and I call this meeting adjourned.